The pen felt heavier than my old service rifle when I signed my name on the company's sale papers. Elena smiled that perfect smile she'd practiced in mirrors since college, the one that made men write checks and women hate her guts. Now you can finally afford the alimony, she purred, already calculating her half of what she thought was coming. I handed the papers to Travis, my old Marine buddy who'd been running security installations since we got back stateside. $1, I said, loud enough for her to hear. Pleasure doing business. Elena's smile cracked like cheap paint. What did you just say? Oh, sweetheart. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment I'd been planning for 6 months. Did I forget to mention? I sold the company to Travis here for exactly $1, legal and binding. I tapped the papers. You want half? Here's 50 cents. Her phone buzzed. Her divorce lawyer, probably calling in a panic after reviewing the filed documents. Elena's face went white as she read the text, then red, then purple. You can't do this, she shrieked, her careful composure finally cracking. Already did. I stood up, straightening my flannel shirt. What, you wanted cash too? 6 months earlier, I'd started noticing things. Little things. Elena guarding her phone like state secrets. New underwear that never made it into our laundry basket. Working late at her PR agency 3 nights a week, then 4, then every weeknight. The real kicker was Dylan Patterson's smug grin at the Miller's barbecue last summer. He'd cornered Elena by the pool while I was getting beers, and when I came back, they both had that post-secret look. You know the one. Same expression kids get after they've broken something and haven't been caught yet. Dylan drove a white Mercedes G-Wagon because subtlety wasn't his strong suit. Neither was faithfulness, apparently. He ran Patterson Development, one of those companies that bought up old neighborhoods and turned them into overpriced condos with names like Heritage Oaks and Riverstone Commons. I'm Jake Morrison, 34 years old, 2 tours in Afghanistan, owner of Morrison Contracting until about 5 minutes ago. I build things that last, fix things that break, solve problems that seem impossible, like unfaithful wives. After the barbecue, I started paying attention, real attention, the kind that kept me alive overseas. Elena's patterns changed. Her phone was always face down. She'd shower immediately after coming home from work. Classic signs, textbook obvious once you know what to look for. So I installed some security cameras in my home office. Just a few discrete units, the kind Travis sold to paranoid executives. Professional grade, motion activated, cloud storage. Elena never went in there anyway. Said it smelled like sawdust and testosterone. The footage was educational. 3 weeks of recordings showed Elena bringing Dylan into our house on Tuesday afternoons. My house, my furniture, my bed sometimes. They'd laugh about me, calling me Dense Jake and the Grunt. Elena did these little impressions, mocking my morning routine, the way I read the sports page over coffee. But the real gem came on a Thursday in October. Elena, naked from the waist up, pacing around my office while Dylan sat in my desk chair like he owned the place. He's so easy to manipulate, Elena said, checking her makeup in my computer monitor. Acts all tough, but he's basically a trained dog. I say sit, he sits. I say buy me a car, he buys me a car. Dylan laughed. What about after the divorce? I get half his company, half the house, alimony for life. Jake's too proud to fight it in court. He'll just pay up and disappear. She pulled on her bra, a lacy red thing I'd never seen before. Besides, his lawyer thinks I'm sweet. Poor little Elena, married to the mean contractor who works too much. Speaking of which, Dylan stood up, adjusting his belt. My investors are interested in Morrison Contracting's client list. Small-town construction, steady income, established relationships. Perfect for gentrification projects. Elena grinned. Soon his company will be ours too. I watched this on my laptop in my truck, parked outside the hardware store, hands shaking with rage. Not just anger calculation. The cold, methodical fury that made me good at my job overseas. I didn't know yet how hard I'd make them pay, but I knew where to start. Phase 1 began the next morning. While Elena was at her yoga class, or whatever she was actually doing, I visited my lawyer, not the marriage counselor type who'd handled our house purchase, a real lawyer, the kind who'd represented Marines in courts martial. Jake, you sure about this? Bill Henderson had been practicing family law for 20 years, had seen every trick and scheme. Once you file these papers, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. I signed the documents transferring ownership of Morrison Contracting to Travis for $1. Completely legal. Travis had been my partner in everything but paperwork since we started the business. Now he was the official owner. What about your assets? Already moved? I'd spent the week transferring our joint savings into accounts Elena couldn't touch, buying tools and equipment for the business, prepaying my truck insurance for 2 years. Everything legal, everything documented. She wants to play games? Let's play. The real beauty was the timing. Elena's lawyer had filed divorce papers assuming I owned a company worth $200,000. Now I owned exactly nothing except my tools, my truck, and my rapidly growing thirst for revenge. Phase 2 required more finesse. Dylan's weakness was his ego. Guy drove a G-Wagon to construction sites, wore Armani suits to inspect drywall. He thought money made him untouchable. I followed him for a week, learning his routine. Gym at 6 a.m., coffee at the same place, office by 8. Predictable as sunrise. Tuesday morning, I was waiting in the gym parking lot when Dylan came out, sweating through his designer workout gear. He'd parked his precious Mercedes under the only tree, trying to keep it shaded. I'd prepared a special gift. Glitter bomb, but not the harmless party kind. Industrial-grade adhesive mixed with metallic paint chips, rigged with a motion sensor under his hood. Travis had helped me design it, completely undetectable until activated. But I wanted Dylan to know this wasn't random. I placed a polished deer skull on his windshield with a note tucked under the wipers. I know where you work and where you live. Then I waited across the street, drinking gas station coffee and enjoying the show. Dylan's reaction was everything I'd hoped for. He circled his car 3 times, looking for damage, checking the shadows. Picked up the skull like it might explode, read the note twice. His face went pale, then red, then back to pale. He drove off fast, tires squealing on the asphalt. The glitter bomb would trigger when he popped the hood, which happened sooner than expected. Dylan was paranoid enough to check under the hood at his first stop, a coffee shop downtown. The explosion wasn't dangerous, just spectacularly messy. Adhesive glitter covering everything under the hood, his suit, his hands. Impossible to clean off quickly. I was across the street, pretending to read a newspaper while Dylan hopped around his car like an angry monkey, glittery and ridiculous. But the real work was happening at City Hall. Sandra Martinez ran my office and knew everyone in town. More importantly, she knew which clerks processed business licenses and zoning permits. A few carefully placed phone calls, some concerns about irregular paperwork at Patterson Development, and Dylan's next 3 projects got buried in bureaucratic quicksand. His permit applications are getting randomly selected for extended review, Sandra reported, barely containing her grin. She'd never liked Elena, said she had fake energy and dead eyes. How long? 6 months minimum, maybe 8 if they find any real problems. Sandra's smile widened. And Jake? They always find problems when they look hard enough? Phase 3 was more personal. Elena still didn't know about the company sale. Her lawyer was stalling, probably trying to figure out how to break the news that her meal ticket had just turned into bus fare. She kept acting normal, which meant treating me like an ATM machine with arms. The Hendersons are having a dinner party Friday, she announced over breakfast, not looking up from her phone. I told them we'd bring wine, something expensive. Of course you did. Don't be like that, Jake. We need to maintain appearances. She finally looked at me, practiced smile in place. Besides, you know how I get when I'm stressed. I knew exactly how she got when stressed. She'd disappear for 3-hour client meetings and come home smelling like Dylan's cologne. What are you stressed about, sweetheart? Elena's smile flickered. Nothing major, just some issues at work. Budget concerns? Right. Budget concerns named Dylan Patterson, whose development projects were suddenly drowning in permit delays and inspection requirements. Friday night, I dressed nice. Button-down shirt, clean jeans, boots without construction dust. Elena wore a black dress that cost more than my truck payment, the kind that made other women whisper and men forget their wives' names. The Hendersons' house was full of the usual suspects. Small-town professionals trying to feel sophisticated, drinking wine they couldn't pronounce and discussing vacation homes they couldn't afford. Dylan was there, of course, still picking glitter out of his hair from the hood bomb incident. He saw me across the room and physically flinched. Jake! Tom Henderson, my old high school buddy, clapped me on the shoulder. Haven't seen you around much. How's business? Booming, I said, loud enough for Elena to hear. Just sold the company, actually. Elena's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. No kidding. Good for you, man. Finally ready to retire? Something like that. I caught Elena's eye across the room. Sometimes you need to cut your losses before they cut you. The look on her face was priceless. Confusion, then understanding, then barely controlled panic. She excused herself from whatever conversation she was pretending to follow and cornered me by the kitchen. What did you mean you sold the company? Exactly what I said. Morrison Contracting belongs to Travis now. For how much? $1. Elena's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the blood draining from her face. Jake, please tell me you're joking. Nope. Legal and binding. Filed the papers yesterday. But the divorce? What about it? You want half of nothing? Here's 50 cents. She grabbed my arm, nails digging through my shirt. You can't do this to me. Already did. I pulled free, straightening my sleeve. What, you thought I was stupid? That I didn't know about you and Dylan? Elena's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Around us, the party continued, but I could feel people starting to notice the tension. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a video file. Want me to play this for everyone? Tuesday afternoon, my office, you and your boyfriend discussing how easy I am to manipulate? Elena went white as her dress was black. Your choice, sweetheart. We can discuss this privately, or I can give Tom's guests some real entertainment. She followed me outside to the back patio, heels clicking on the stone tiles. The night air was cold, October biting through her thin dress. How long have you known? Long enough. I leaned against the railing, casual as discussing the weather. You're not as smart as you think, Elena, and Dylan's not as careful as he thinks. Jake, we can work this out. No, we can't. I showed her the phone screen, paused on a frame of her and Dylan in my office. See, the thing about surveillance systems is they record everything. Every conversation, every laugh about how stupid your husband is, every plan to steal his business. Elena stared at the screen, her reflection ghostly in the glass. What do you want? Justice. That's not an answer. Sure it is. I pocketed the phone. You wanted to play games, Elena. Congratulations. You're winning. Back inside, Dylan was nervously checking his phone, probably wondering why his girlfriend had disappeared with her husband. He saw us return and started making his way over, but Elena shook her head sharply. Smart girl. Some conversations were better left unheard. The rest of the party was torture for them, entertainment for me. Elena forced to smile and make small talk while her world crumbled. Dylan trying to act normal while covered in barely visible glitter that caught the light when he moved. We left early, Elena claiming a headache. True enough, she'd have a lot worse than headaches soon. Phase 4 kicked off Monday morning. Jake, you need to see this. Sandra handed me a stack of papers, grinning like Christmas morning. Dylan Patterson's investors are pulling out of the Riverside project. No kidding. Gets better. Turns out some of his permit applications contained irregularities. The city's launching a full investigation into Patterson Development's compliance history. I flipped through the documents. Official letterhead, serious language, the kind of bureaucratic nightmare that killed businesses slowly and thoroughly. How'd you hear about this? My cousin works in zoning. Says Dylan came in Friday afternoon screaming about harassment and conspiracies. Made such a scene they had to call security. Beautiful. Nothing destroyed a man's reputation faster than public hysteria. Investors hated instability, and clients avoided crazy. But Elena was the real target. Tuesday afternoon, while she was at another client meeting, I visited her office. Pinnacle PR occupied the second floor of an old bank building downtown, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Very trendy, very expensive. Elena's assistant recognized me, of course. Jenny Walsh, fresh out of college with student loans and big dreams. The kind of employee Elena treated like a personal servant. Is Elena in? I wanted to surprise her with lunch. Jenny's smile was strained. Actually, Mr. Morrison, Elena's been working from home more often lately. Budget constraints. Interesting. Budget constraints usually meant lost clients, which meant Elena's perfect little PR empire was cracking under pressure. Nothing serious, I hope? Oh, I shouldn't really... Jenny glanced around the empty office. It's just been harder to keep clients lately. Some of the bigger accounts have been asking questions. What kind of questions? About professionalism, reliability. Jenny lowered her voice. Between you and me, Elena's been distracted lately. Missing meetings, showing up late. Yesterday, she forgot about the Riverside project presentation completely. The Riverside project. Dylan's pet development. The one now buried in permit hell. Well, I'm sure she's just stressed. New business is always challenging. Jenny nodded, but her expression said otherwise. Elena's reputation was sliding, and in a small town, reputation was everything. That evening, Elena came home late and angry. We need to talk, she announced. dropping her purse on the kitchen counter with unnecessary force. About, you know about what? The business sale, the permits, all of it? She turned to face me, hands on her hips. You're sabotaging Dylan. Am I? Don't play dumb, Jake. His projects are stalled, his investors are nervous, and somehow it's all happening right after you find out about us. Us? I opened the refrigerator, pulled out a beer. That's a funny way to describe an affair. Elena's face flushed. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I opened the beer, took a long drink. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I could tell people what you're doing. Tell them what? That I sold my own company? That Dylan's permit applications are getting proper scrutiny? What law did I break, Elena? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Nothing illegal about any of it. Unethical, maybe, definitely vindictive, but perfectly legal. You're destroying innocent people. I laughed, actually laughed. Innocent? Dylan Patterson hasn't been innocent since he figured out how to charm building inspectors into approving substandard work. And you? I set down the beer, looked her straight in the eye. You stopped being innocent the first time you brought him into our house. Elena's composure cracked. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? You'd divorce me, take half my assets, and live happily ever after with your boyfriend? While I, disappeared quietly? Jake, answer the question. She couldn't or wouldn't, same difference. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, voice calm and steady. You're going to file for divorce. No contest, no alimony demands, no asset division, clean break. And if I don't, I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a video file. Then everyone in town gets to see exactly what kind of person you really are. Your clients, your family, your church friends, all of them. Elena stared at the phone screen, watching herself mock me in my own office. The blood drained from her face as she realized how it looked, how it would play to an audience that thought she was a sweet, wronged wife. You wouldn't. Try me. She didn't. Wednesday brought news that made my coffee taste even better than usual. Dylan Patterson's wife filed for divorce, Sandra reported, settling into her desk with obvious satisfaction. Word is, she found some interesting photos on his computer. No kidding. Jenny Walsh called this morning. Apparently, Elena's lost 3 more clients this week. Something about changing priorities and seeking new representation. The dominoes were falling exactly as planned. Elena's business crumbling. Dylan's projects stalled. Both of them watching their carefully constructed lives collapse in real time. But I wasn't done. Thursday afternoon, I drove to Dylan's office. Patterson Development occupied a renovated warehouse in the Arts District, all steel beams and polished concrete. His assistant, a nervous young man who jumped when phones rang, tried to tell me Dylan was busy. He'll want to see me, I said, walking past the desk toward Dylan's private office. Dylan was on the phone when I entered, probably yelling at some city official about permit delays. He saw me and went pale, ending the call mid-sentence. Jake, what are you doing here? Thought we should talk. Man to man. I don't think that's a good idea. I do. I closed the door behind me, noted the security camera in the corner. Good. Let there be a record. See, I've been thinking about our situation. You, me, Elena. The whole mess. Dylan stood up, putting his desk between us like it might offer protection. Look, Jake, I know you're upset. Upset? I sat down in one of his client chairs, relaxed as if discussing the weather. I'm not upset, Dylan. I'm disappointed. Disappointed? You're not very good at this. The affair, I mean. Elena thought she was playing chess, but you were barely managing checkers. Dylan's face reddened. What's that supposed to mean? You left a trail wider than your ego, hotel receipts on company credit cards, text messages on phones your wife had access to, meetings at restaurants where half the town could see you. I shook my head. Amateur hour. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone, showed him a photo. Elena in his office, kissing him while he sat in his leather chair. Timestamp clearly visible. Can I? Dylan stared at the screen, then sank back into his chair. What do you want? I want you to understand something. This isn't about money or property or even Elena. This is about respect. Jake, you came into my house, used my furniture, laughed about how stupid I was while you planned to steal my business. I leaned forward. That was a mistake. Dylan's hands were shaking now. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How is it supposed to happen? Elena said you'd never fight back, that you'd just accept it and move on. Elena was wrong about a lot of things. I stood up, straightened my jacket. But she was right about one thing. I am easy to underestimate. I walked to the door, then turned back. Dylan, Your wife's lawyer is very thorough. Apparently, she's been documenting your assets for months, preparing for this divorce. Your business accounts, your real estate investments, even that offshore account you thought was secret. I smiled. Elena's not the only one who knows how to plan ahead. His face went white. How did you? Small town, Dylan. People talk. I left him sitting there, staring at his phone like it might explode. Friday evening brought the confrontation I'd been expecting. Elena came home drunk and furious, stumbling through our front door like an avenging angel in a torn dress. "You bastard!" she screamed, throwing her purse at my head. "You ruined everything!" I ducked the purse, caught it before it hit the wall. "Rough day at work? Don't you dare joke about this!" Elena kicked off her heels, one of them leaving a scuff mark on the hardwood floor. "Jenny quit today. Jenny, my assistant since college." "Why'd she quit?" "Because there's no money to pay her. My clients are gone, Jake. All of them. Scared off by rumors and gossip and your little revenge scheme." I set her purse on the counter, noting the scattered contents. Tissues, lipstick, divorce papers. "What rumors?" "You know exactly what rumors. That I'm unstable, unreliable, sleeping with clients." Elena's voice cracked. "My reputation is destroyed." "Sounds like you destroyed it yourself." She slapped me, hard. The sound echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. "Feel better?" I asked, touching my cheek where her ring had left a mark. Elena stared at her hand like she couldn't believe what she'd done. "Jake, I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry your plan failed. Sorry I turned out to be smarter than you thought." I picked up the divorce papers from her purse, flipped through them. "But you're not sorry for what you did." "That's not true. Prove it." She couldn't. We both knew it. The divorce papers were everything I'd expected. No alimony demands, no asset division, clean break. Elena's lawyer had advised her to cut her losses and run. "I'll sign them," I said, "but I want one more thing." "What?" "An apology. To my face, on camera, admitting what you did." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because I want to remember this moment. The moment you finally told the truth." She thought about it for a long time, weighing her options. Pride against pragmatism, image against reality. "If I do this, you'll leave me alone? No more sabotage, no more games?" "No more games," I agreed. Elena positioned herself in front of my phone camera, straightened her hair, took a deep breath. "My name is Elena Morrison, and I had an affair with Dylan Patterson while married to Jake Morrison. We planned to divorce Jake and steal his business assets. We mocked him and called him stupid. We used his house for our meetings." Her voice was steady, but I could see the effort it took. "Jake found out and responded by legally protecting his assets and exposing our plan. He never broke any laws or hurt anyone physically. I betrayed my husband's trust, and I'm sorry." I stopped recording. "There. Now we're even. Are we?" I signed the divorce papers, dated them, handed them back. "We are now." Elena collected her things in silence. Clothes, jewelry, personal items. She left behind the expensive kitchen appliances, the furniture we'd bought together, the wedding photos on the mantel. At the door, she turned back one last time. "Jake?" "Yeah?" "Dylan's broke. His business is finished, his wife took everything, his investors want nothing to do with him." She looked genuinely sad. "Was it worth it?" I thought about the question. 6 months of planning, weeks of careful sabotage, relationships destroyed, lives ruined, all for revenge against a cheating wife and her pathetic boyfriend. "Ask me in a year." Elena left. I never saw her again. Saturday morning, I was rebuilding a deck for the Williamses when Travis called. "You see the paper this morning?" "Not yet. Why?" "Patterson Development filed for bankruptcy. Dylan's selling everything, trying to pay off creditors." I hammered in another nail, satisfaction warm in my chest. "What about Elena?" "Word is she's moving back in with her parents. Going to try to restart her business in the city. Good luck with that." Small-town scandals followed people, especially in the internet age. Elena's reputation would chase her wherever she went. "Jake, you okay with all this?" I looked around at the half-built deck, the organized chaos of construction, the simple pleasure of building something that would last. "I'm fine, Travis. Better than fine." "Good, because I got a call about a big commercial job. Office building downtown, complete renovation. Interested? Send me the details." Life moved on. The divorce was finalized in December, no contest, no drama. Elena kept her maiden name and disappeared into the city like smoke. Dylan sold his remaining properties and moved to Florida, tail between his legs. Jenny Walsh started her own PR firm, took most of Elena's former clients with her. She sent me a Christmas card thanking me for inspiring her to make a change. Sandra got a raise and a new title, office manager and partner. She'd earned it. I bought a new truck and took a vacation to Colorado. First real time off in years. Spent a week hiking alone in the mountains, thinking about the past 6 months, about choices and consequences and the price of revenge. Was it worth it? Elena's question haunted me in the thin mountain air. I'd destroyed 2 lives, ruined a business, ended a marriage, all because my wife decided she wanted a newer model husband and thought I was too stupid to notice. The answer came to me on a snowy peak at sunset, watching the light fade over the Continental Divide. Yes, it was worth it. Not because of the revenge itself, though that satisfaction was real and lasting, but because I'd refused to be a victim. Elena and Dylan had made their choice to betray me, assuming I'd accept it quietly. They were wrong. Spring brought new contracts and new challenges. Morrison Contracting was thriving under Travis's official ownership, my unofficial partnership. We hired 3 new guys, bought better equipment, started bidding on bigger jobs. I was replacing kitchen cabinets for the Hendersons when Tom mentioned seeing Elena downtown. She looked different, he said, handing me a screwdriver. Thin, tired. Asked about you, actually. What'd you tell her? That you were doing great. New truck, new attitude, seemed happy. Tom paused. She didn't look happy. I finished installing the cabinet door, tested the hinges. Smooth and solid, built to last. Some people make their own unhappiness, Tom. Not much anyone else can do about it. That afternoon, driving home from the hardware store, I saw Elena's car parked outside the coffee shop downtown. She was sitting by the window, staring at her phone like it held answers to questions she couldn't ask. I could have stopped, could have gone inside, talked to her, maybe found some closure or forgiveness or whatever divorced couples were supposed to discover. Instead, I drove past without slowing down. Some stories don't have happy endings. Some mistakes can't be forgiven. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. Elena had made her choice 6 months ago when she brought Dylan into our house. I'd made mine when I decided to fight back instead of rolling over. We were both living with the consequences. Summer was busy. 3 major contracts, a crew of reliable guys, profits higher than they'd been in years. Sandra was dating a teacher from the elementary school, seemed happy. Travis bought a boat and spent weekends fishing on the lake. I worked, slept, occasionally went to the Miller's barbecues or Tom Henderson's dinner parties. People stopped asking about Elena after a while. Small towns were good at forgetting scandals once they stopped being entertaining. Dylan never came back. I heard through the construction grapevine that he was selling real estate in Tampa, struggling to rebuild his reputation and his bank account. His ex-wife had kept the house, the cars, most of their assets. Justice, of a sort. One evening in July, I was finishing a bathroom renovation when my phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Jake, it's Elena. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time, weighing my options. Part of me was curious what she wanted to say, what excuse or explanation she'd crafted in the months since our divorce, but curiosity wasn't enough to reopen old wounds. I deleted the message without responding. August brought the hottest summer in years and the biggest contract of my career. The city wanted to renovate the old courthouse, a massive project that would take 18 months and establish Morrison Contracting as the premier builder in the region. Travis and I celebrated at Murphy's Bar, drinking beer and planning the crew expansion we'd need for the job. You ever regret it? Travis asked during a quiet moment between toasts. The way it all went down with Elena and Dylan? I thought about the question, rolling my beer bottle between my palms. 6 months of rage and planning, weeks of careful sabotage, lives destroyed for the sake of pride and justice. You know what I regret, Travis? What's that? I regret trusting her in the first place. I regret not seeing through her act sooner. I regret letting her make a fool of me for as long as she did. I took a drink, set the bottle down firmly. But what I did after? No regrets at all. Travis nodded. Good, because that woman was poison and Dylan was a parasite. You just gave them what they deserved. Maybe he was right. Maybe justice and revenge were the same thing when people chose to betray trust and destroy lives for their own selfish gains. Fall came early that year, October cold and bitter. I was driving past the Arts District when I saw Dylan's old office building. New sign out front, Walsh PR and Marketing. Jenny had bought the space, was building something better from the ashes of Elena's failed empire. Good for her. Some people learn from other people's mistakes. The courthouse project was ahead of schedule and under budget by Halloween. My crew was solid, my reputation was sterling, and my bank account was healthier than it had been in years. I was measuring crown molding for the judge's chambers when Sandra called. "Jake, you need to see this." Her voice was excited, almost gleeful. "What now?" "Elena's in the paper." "Well, sort of." "What do you mean, sort of?" "Business section. There's an article about failed startups in the region. Elena's PR firm gets a mention as an example of poor business practices and client management." I laughed despite myself. "Send me the link." The article was brutal in its clinical assessment. Elena's company was cited as a case study in how personal scandals could destroy professional relationships, how reputation management firms could ironically fail to manage their own reputations. The author had clearly done his research. Elena's lost clients, her pattern of missed meetings and broken promises, the whispered rumors about affairs and unprofessional conduct, all laid out in black and white for anyone to read. It was the kind of article that followed people forever in the internet age. Elena Morrison would never work in PR again, at least not successfully. I forwarded the article to Travis with a single word: karma. His response was immediate. Couldn't have happened to a nicer person. Winter brought the final phase of the courthouse renovation and an unexpected visitor. I was installing hardwood flooring in the lobby when the security guard mentioned someone wanted to see me. Elena stood in the doorway like a ghost from a bad dream, thin and hollow-eyed, wearing a coat that had seen better days. "Hello, Jake." "Elena." I didn't stop working, didn't look up from the floor planks. "What do you want?" "To apologize. Really apologize, not the performance you demanded for your camera." "Little late for that." "I know." She stepped closer, carefully avoiding the work area. "But I need to say it anyway." I sat back on my heels, finally looked at her. Elena had aged badly in the year since our divorce. Lines around her eyes, gray in her hair, the hollow look of someone who'd lost everything and didn't know how to get it back. "So say it." "I was wrong. About everything. About you. About Dylan. About what I thought I wanted." Elena's voice cracked slightly. "I had a good marriage, and I destroyed it for a fantasy that never existed." "Yeah, you did." "Jake, I know you'll never forgive me." "You're right. I won't. But I need you to know that losing you was the worst mistake of my life. Not the business, not the reputation, not the money. Losing you." I stood up, brushed sawdust off my knees. "Elena, I appreciate the apology, really, but it doesn't change anything." "I know. Good luck with whatever comes next." Elena nodded, understanding the dismissal. She walked to the door, then turned back one last time. "For what it's worth, Jake, you won. Completely and totally. I hope that gives you some peace." After she left, I went back to work. The flooring wouldn't install itself, and I had a schedule to keep. But her words stayed with me for the rest of the day. Had I won? Elena was broke and unemployed, her reputation destroyed, her future prospects dim. Dylan was in Florida selling condos to retirees, his development empire reduced to memories and regrets. And me? I was successful, respected, financially secure. My business was thriving, my reputation was solid, my life was moving forward. By any objective measure, I'd won completely. So why did Elena's hollow eyes haunt me that night? Spring returned with new contracts and familiar routines. The courthouse project wrapped up on time and under budget, earning Morrison Contracting a feature in the Regional Business Journal. More work followed, bigger projects, better clients. I hired 2 more crew members and bought a new truck. Travis talked about expanding into commercial development, maybe bidding on some of the projects Dylan's bankruptcy had left unfinished. Life was good, better than good. But sometimes, late at night in my empty house, I wondered what might have been different if I'd handled things another way. If I'd confronted Elena directly instead of orchestrating her downfall. If I'd offered forgiveness instead of revenge. Then I'd remember her laughing about how easy I was to manipulate, planning to steal my life's work, mocking me in my own home. The wondering would stop. Some betrayals deserved consequences. Some people needed to learn that actions had prices. Elena had learned. Dylan had learned. The lesson was expensive, but it was thorough. June brought news that Dylan's ex-wife had remarried, a successful lawyer from the state capital. She'd kept Dylan's name, but not his memory, building a new life from the ashes of the old one. Smart woman. Sometimes the best revenge was simply living better than the people who'd wronged you. July marked 2 years since Elena's betrayal, 1 year since our divorce. I was installing kitchen cabinets for a young couple, newlyweds full of hope and plans for their future. "How long have you been married, Mr. Morrison?" the wife asked, admiring the craftsmanship on her new cabinets. "I'm divorced," I said simply. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry." "No problem. Sometimes things just don't work out." The husband nodded sympathetically. "Divorce is tough. You dating anyone now?" I thought about Sandra, who'd been dropping hints for months, or Jenny Walsh, who'd made it clear she was interested, or any of the dozen women in town who'd made their availability known since my divorce became public knowledge. Not really. Too busy with work. It was easier than explaining that I wasn't sure I trusted anyone enough to let them that close again. Elena had been convincing, charming, perfect right up until she wasn't. How do you trust your own judgment after something like that? August brought an unexpected phone call. "Jake Morrison?" "Speaking. This is Detective Sarah Collins with the State Police. I'm investigating some irregularities in Patterson Development's business practices. I understand you might have information relevant to our case." My blood went cold. "What kind of irregularities? Permit fraud, bribery, code violations?" "We're building a case against Dylan Patterson and possibly others involved in his operation. Others, like Elena, who'd been sleeping with him and planning to partner with his business." "I might have some information," I said carefully. "Could you come in for an interview? Nothing formal, just want to hear what you know." I agreed to meet her the next day, spent the evening reviewing everything I knew about Dylan's business practices. The permit delays I'd caused were legitimate. His applications really did contain irregularities. The building inspections that found violations were real. Dylan's problems weren't just my revenge. They were the natural consequences of cutting corners and bribing officials. Detective Collins was thorough and professional. She took my statement, reviewed the evidence I provided, asked pointed questions about Elena's involvement. "Your ex-wife was intimately involved with Patterson's business plans." According to conversations I recorded, yes. They discussed using my client list for gentrification projects, planned to steal my business assets. "Do you still have those recordings?" I did. Hidden in a safe deposit box, insurance against any future trouble. I handed over copies, watched the detective's expression grow more serious as she reviewed them. "Mr. Morrison, these recordings could be crucial evidence in our case. Patterson's been under investigation for 6 months, but we've had trouble proving intent to defraud." "What about Elena?" "That depends on how deeply she was involved. Conspiracy charges are possible if we can prove she was an active participant in the fraud scheme." Part of me felt satisfaction at the thought of Elena facing criminal charges. Another part, a smaller, quieter part, felt something that might have been regret. "Detective Collins, when you arrest them, if you arrest them, could you not mention my name? I'd prefer to stay out of the publicity." She nodded. "We'll do our best to protect your identity. You've been very helpful." The arrests came 3 weeks later. Dylan Patterson charged with fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. Elena Morrison charged as an accessory and co-conspirator. The local paper ran the story on the front page, complete with photos and details about the investigation, Dylan's permit violations, his bribes to city officials, his plans to defraud investors and partners. Elena's involvement was mentioned but not emphasized. The prosecutor seemed more interested in Dylan as the primary target. I read the article over morning coffee, feeling nothing in particular. No satisfaction, no regret, no sense of victory or justice. Just the quiet recognition that some stories take longer to end than others. Travis called an hour later. "You see the paper?" "Yeah." "Feel good?" I thought about the question. Did it feel good to see them arrested, charged, facing possible prison time? "It feels like closing a book," I said finally. "Like finishing something that should have been finished a long time ago. Good enough." The trial was scheduled for fall. Elena's lawyer negotiated a plea deal, probation, and community service in exchange for testifying against Dylan. Smart move. Dylan got 18 months in minimum security, most of which he'd serve in a work release program. Justice of a sort. Not the dramatic courtroom vindication you see in movies, but the slow, methodical process of consequences catching up with choices. Elena moved back to her parents' house to serve her probation. I heard she was working part-time at a clothing store, trying to rebuild her life one day at a time. Good for her. Everyone deserved a chance at redemption, even if forgiveness wasn't part of the package. Fall brought the biggest contract in Morrison Contracting's history. The county wanted to build a new municipal complex, 18 months of work that would establish us as the premier construction company in the region. Travis and I celebrated at Murphy's Bar, toasting success in the future. You know what the best part is? Travis said, raising his beer. What's that? 3 years ago, Elena and Dylan thought they could steal your life and get away with it. Now look where everyone ended up. I looked around the bar, familiar faces and friendly conversations, the comfortable rhythms of a small town where reputations mattered and integrity had value. Yeah, I said, look where we ended up. Winter was mild that year, perfect weather for construction. The municipal complex rose steadily, concrete and steel and carefully planned spaces that would serve the community for decades. I was installing trim in the main corridor when Sandra brought me a newspaper clipping. Thought you might want to see this. The headline read, "Local Woman Starts Fresh After Legal Troubles." The article was about Elena, her community service work with homeless shelters, her plans to return to school for a teaching degree. She's trying to rebuild her life, Sandra observed. Good for her. You really mean that? I thought about the question. Did I want Elena to succeed in rebuilding her life? Did I hope she found happiness and purpose after everything that had happened? Yeah, I do. What she did was wrong, but she's paid the price. Time to move on, Sandra smiled. That's very mature of you. Don't sound so surprised. Spring brought completion of the municipal complex and a new challenge. The State Transportation Department wanted to renovate 3 highway bridges, a massive project that would require partnering with engineering firms and managing complex logistics. Morrison Contracting bid on the project and won, beating out companies twice our size with better proposals and competitive pricing. Success felt different now than it had 3 years ago. Less desperate, more confident. I'd proven I could survive betrayal and build something better from the wreckage. Elena's teaching degree made the local paper's education section. She'd graduated with honors, landed a job at the elementary school where Sandra's boyfriend taught. Full circle in a way. Elena teaching children while I built structures that would outlast all of us. Summer brought the bridge project and unexpected news. Dylan Patterson was being released early for good behavior, planned to return to construction work as a project manager for a company in the next county. You okay with that? Travis asked when he heard the news. It's a free country. Man's got to make a living. Even after everything he did? Especially after everything he did. Prison was his consequence. Now he gets to try rebuilding his life, same as everyone else. Travis looked skeptical. You're being awfully generous. I'm being practical. Holding grudges is exhausting, and I've got better things to do with my time. The first bridge renovation was completed ahead of schedule and under budget. Local news covered the project, interviewing me about Morrison Contracting's growth and success. What's the secret to your company's success? The reporter asked. Good people, quality work, and keeping your word, I said. Everything else is just details. Any advice for other small business owners? I thought about Elena and Dylan, about trust and betrayal and the long road back from both. Focus on building something that lasts. Shortcuts always cost more in the end. Fall marked 3 years since Elena's betrayal, 2 years since our divorce, 1 year since the criminal trial that closed the book on that chapter of my life. I was installing flooring in my own house, finally renovating the rooms that held too many bad memories. When the doorbell rang, Elena stood on my porch, looking nervous but determined. She wore a simple dress and carried a covered dish, like a neighbor bringing dinner to someone who'd been sick. Hello, Jake? Elena. I wiped my hands on a work rag, stepped outside to talk. What's that? Lasagna. I know it's your favorite, thought maybe. She trailed off, realizing how presumptuous the gesture seemed. That's thoughtful. Thank you. She handed me the dish, our fingers brushing briefly. No spark, no emotion, just the casual contact of 2 people who used to know each other well. Jake, I know this is awkward, but I wanted to thank you. For what? For not fighting the plea deal? For letting me start over without making it harder than it had to be? I set the lasagna on the porch railing, studied her face. Elena looked healthier than she had during our winter encounter, more at peace with herself and her circumstances. You don't need to thank me for that. Yes, I do. You could have pushed for maximum charges, could have made sure I went to prison too. You didn't. Prison wouldn't have served anyone's interests. Elena nodded. I heard about your success with the bridge project. The kids at school talk about the big construction happening in town. You like teaching? I love it. It's hard work and the pay isn't great, but it feels meaningful. Like I'm building something that matters. That's good. You deserve to be happy. Do I? The question hung between us like smoke from a dying fire. Everyone deserves a chance at happiness, Elena. What matters is what you do with the chance. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Two people who'd shared a life and destroyed it, and somehow found peace on the other side. Jake, do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different? If I'd been honest from the beginning? If we'd worked through our problems instead of... Sometimes, I admitted, but not often. We can't change the past, and wondering about it doesn't help anyone. Elena smiled sadly. You're right. You always were good at seeing things clearly. Not always. Took me long enough to see what was happening right in front of me. Maybe we both learned something from all this. Maybe we did. Elena walked back to her car, then turned one last time. Jake, for what it's worth, I'm glad you fought back. I'm glad you didn't let us destroy you. Take care of yourself, Elena. You too. I watched her drive away, then went back inside to finish my flooring project. The house was looking better, cleaner somehow, freed from the weight of old memories and failed dreams. Winter brought news that Dylan had remarried, a widow with 2 children who owned a flower shop in the next county. He was managing construction projects for a small firm, building strip malls and storage facilities. Not glamorous work, but honest work. Sometimes that was enough. The second bridge project started in spring, ahead of schedule thanks to lessons learned from the first renovation. Morrison Contracting was now employing 12 people full-time, with subcontractors bringing the total crew to nearly 30 for major projects. Sandra had been promoted to operations manager and was engaged to her teacher boyfriend. Travis bought a house on the lake and talked about settling down, maybe starting a family. Life was good, better than good. Summer brought an invitation that surprised me. Elena was getting married to a fellow teacher, a man who coached baseball and sponsored the school's reading club. The wedding would be small, family, and close friends only. I wasn't invited, of course, but Elena had sent me a note, thanking me again for giving her space to rebuild her life. I wanted you to know, she wrote, that I've found someone who loves me for who I am now, not who I used to be. I think you'd like him. He's kind and patient and builds things that last, like you do. I kept the note for a few days, then threw it away. Some chapters needed to stay closed. Fall brought completion of the second bridge and news that the third would be delayed until spring. Perfect timing. Morrison Contracting had been awarded the contract to build a new high school, 18 months of work that would keep us busy well into the following year. I was reviewing architectural plans when Sandra knocked on my office door. Jake, there's someone here to see you. Dylan Patterson stood in the waiting area, hat in his hands, looking older and smaller than I remembered. 3 years in the real world had worn off his arrogance, left him looking like what he'd always been underneath, a small man trying to seem bigger than he was. Dylan, Jake, thanks for seeing me. What can I do for you? I wanted to apologize, face to face, man to man. I gestured toward my office. Dylan followed, closing the door behind him. So apologize. Dylan sat down heavily, like the words were a physical burden. I was wrong. About everything. About Elena, about you, about thinking I could take what wasn't mine. He looked up, met my eyes. I destroyed my marriage, my business, my reputation, lost everything that mattered. You're rebuilding. I'm trying. Got a good woman now, kids who are starting to trust me. Work that's honest, if not exciting. Sounds like you landed on your feet. Eventually. But it took a long time to get here, and I hurt a lot of people along the way. Dylan reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope. I know money can't fix what I did, but I wanted to pay back what I could. What Elena and I cost you in legal fees, lost time, emotional damage. Inside the envelope was a cashier's check for $15,000. Dylan, I can't accept this. Please, I need to do this. It's not about you forgiving me or us being friends again. It's about me being able to look at myself in the mirror. I studied the check, then looked at Dylan's face. He was serious, desperate even. This wasn't about my forgiveness. It was about his redemption. All right, but I'm donating it to the school district's scholarship fund. In Elena's name. Dylan smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. She'd like that. She really loves those kids. Good for her. We shook hands awkwardly. Two men who'd once been enemies trying to find some measure of peace. Jake, Elena was right about one thing. You are a good man. Better than either of us deserved. After Dylan left, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking about forgiveness and redemption and the strange ways life circled back on itself. 3 years ago, I'd been a betrayed husband plotting revenge against a cheating wife and her lover. Now I was a successful businessman shaking hands with my former enemy and donating his money to help kids get educated. Time changed everything, even the things that seemed permanent. Winter was harsh that year, but the high school project stayed on schedule. My crew was experienced now, efficient and professional. We'd built a reputation for quality work and fair dealing. The scholarship fund announcement made the local paper. 5 students would receive full tuition assistance, funded by an anonymous donation in honor of Elena Morrison Patterson, elementary school teacher and community volunteer. I wondered if Elena knew about the scholarship. Probably. Small towns didn't keep secrets long. Spring brought the third bridge project and an unexpected visitor. Jenny Walsh stopped by the office, successful and confident in a way that reminded me of Elena before everything went wrong. "Jake Morrison, you're a hard man to catch." "Jenny, good to see you. How's the PR business?" "Booming, which is actually why I'm here." She sat down across from my desk, all business. "I want to hire Morrison Contracting." "For what?" "My office expansion. I'm buying the building next door. Need someone to knock out walls and create a unified space." We discussed the project over coffee, professional and friendly. Jenny had built something impressive from the ashes of Elena's failure, proving that sometimes the best revenge was simply doing better than the people who'd failed before you. "Jenny, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you ever think about Elena? What happened to her business? How everything fell apart?" Jenny considered the question carefully. "I think about it sometimes. Elena was a good teacher when she focused on teaching instead of scheming, but she made her choices, and I made mine." "Any regrets? About leaving her company?" "None. About how it ended? Maybe. Elena wasn't evil, Jake, just selfish and short-sighted. She wanted everything without earning it." "And now?" "Now she's earning it. Teaching kids, building a real life with someone who loves her. Maybe that's better than the fantasy she was chasing." Summer brought completion of Jenny's office expansion and the start of the new high school's final phase. The building was taking shape. Classrooms and hallways and spaces where kids would learn and grow and make the same mistakes we'd all made at their age. I was installing lockers in the main hallway when Sandra found me. "Jake, you have a call. It's Elena." I almost told her to take a message, then changed my mind. Some conversations couldn't be postponed forever. "Jake, thank you for the scholarship fund. The kids are so excited and the teachers, we're all grateful." "It was Dylan's money. He wanted to make amends." "I know," he told me. "But it was your idea to do it this way." We talked for a few minutes about the fund, the students who'd received scholarships, the impact on the community. Easy conversation between two people who'd found their separate paths to peace. "Jake, I want you to know that I think about our marriage sometimes. The good parts, before I ruined everything. Elena, I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know that those good times were real. Whatever else happened, we did love each other once." "Yeah, we did." "Are you happy? Really happy?" I looked around the half-built school, listened to the sounds of construction and creation, thought about the life I'd built from the wreckage of betrayal. "Yeah, Elena, I'm happy. Are you?" "Getting there. It's harder than I thought it would be, building something real instead of something that just looks good on the surface. Most worthwhile things are hard." "True. Take care of yourself, Jake." "You too." Fall brought the high school's completion and a celebration that filled me with quiet pride. Hundreds of kids would walk these hallways, sit in these classrooms, use these facilities for decades to come. Building something that lasted, that's what I'd always been good at. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was covered by regional news, featuring interviews with the construction crew and city officials. When they asked me about the project, I kept it simple. Good materials, skilled workers, attention to detail. That's how you build something that stands the test of time. Later, watching kids explore their new school, I thought about Elena and Dylan and the choices that had brought us all to this moment. They'd tried to tear down what I'd built, and in response, I'd helped build something better. Maybe that was the real victory, not the revenge or the punishment or the satisfaction of watching enemies fall, but the simple act of creating something positive from something destructive. Winter brought planning for next year's projects and an offer that surprised me. A construction company in the state capital wanted to buy Morrison Contracting. incorporate it into their operations as a regional subsidiary. The money was substantial, more than I'd ever imagined when I started the business fresh out of the Marines. But money wasn't everything, and I'd learned the hard way that selling something you'd built was different from building something new. I turned down the offer. "You sure about this?" Travis asked over beers at Murphy's. "That's retirement money they're offering." "I'm not ready to retire, and I'm not ready to work for someone else." "Fair enough. But what about expanding? We could bid on projects in other counties, maybe even other states." I thought about it. Growth for its own sake versus growth that served a purpose. Let's focus on what we do well: quality work, fair prices, building things that last. Everything else is just ego. Spring marked 4 years since Elena's betrayal, 3 years since our divorce, 2 years since the criminal trial that had closed that chapter for good. Morrison Contracting was thriving. My crew was stable and skilled. My reputation was solid. I'd survived betrayal and built something better from the wreckage. Some days I thought about Elena, wondered how she was doing, if she was truly happy with her teacher husband and her elementary school job. Other days I thought about Dylan, selling flowers and managing small construction projects, trying to be worthy of his second chance. But mostly I thought about the future, the projects we'd build, the problems we'd solve, the community we'd serve. At 41, I was successful, respected, financially secure. I'd proven that betrayal didn't have to be the end of the story. It could be the beginning of a better one. The courthouse clock chimed 6 as I finished cleaning my tools, another day's work completed. The sun was setting over the town I'd helped build, one project at a time. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to create something lasting. I locked up the office, climbed into my truck, and drove home through streets lined with buildings I'd helped construct. Past the courthouse with its restored hardwood floors, past the municipal complex with its carefully planned spaces, past the high school where kids were already making memories that would last a lifetime. 4 years ago, my wife and her lover had tried to destroy my life and steal my future. Instead, they'd given me something better than I'd ever imagined possible.